Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, I'm excited to have joining me Kip Winger. We're going to talk all about their forthcoming album, 7, reminisce a little bit about their career, and so much more. This is an episode I know you guys are going to really enjoy, so let's jump in and let's get started. So, Kip, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for joining me today. I want to start off by just congratulating you. The forthcoming album, 7, coming out on May 5th. After 35 years of doing Winger albums, solo albums, etc., you still get excited on release day? You get nervous, like how the fans going to receive this album? How do you feel on the eve of a release?
Excellent question. I've never been asked that.
No.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm curious to see what people think of it. But it's not like the old days. I mean, now we've got, we put out a video and then a video and, records coming out on May 5th. So, yeah, I'm reading the comments and stuff and seeing what people think about it for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're saying, you put out video, and just earlier today, a couple of hours ago, you released the epic 7.5 minute song, right? It all comes back around. So that's not a typical single, 7.5 minutes long. What made you choose that song from the album as the second single?
It just felt right to me. It's kind of like Headed for Heartbreak #2, which was also a 7-minute track with a big long guitar solo at the end. The form is very similar to that. It's been tough on this album because I feel like there's a lot of songs I want people to hear. So I don't know. That's felt like the logical choice to me. Just instinct, basically.
Okay. And, look, I've heard in advance of the album, so I understand why you want the fans to hear the album. What made you decide now, 9 years after your last one, this is the time to release a new album? I know you started working on it a few years ago, but what made it 2023 is the right time for a new Winger album?
Well, I mean, it was just a circumstance. Reb was really busy in Whitesnake for years, and I was busy doing my classical thing, and basically the stars just aligned for us to have the time to do it. Um, where we could both, everyone's schedule freed up, and then we started this before COVID. We would have been done. We would have been done a lot sooner, but then COVID did what it did to everybody's life, and stalled the album a little bit because the travel plans became really difficult. Because I won't do an album through the mail. I like to be in the room. The process that Reb and I've done is the same from day one. So, no particular reason other than that the timing seemed right and everybody was available to do it.
Okay. I know you said you were working on the album a few years ago. Were there any songs that you guys had started demoing at that time, and because a few years went by, you said, we could top that, and you put some songs to the side?
Well, when I say, we started in 19 or like 20, and we just kept writing all the way through. So I just kept saving, like, the best ones would rise to the top, and
Sure.
and whatever ideas that we had that didn't work, just just kind of put them to the side. And so it wasn't like any of the songs were particularly old because we were working on them the whole time.
Sure. Now, is the songwriting on this album, I'll say, largely you and Reb writing the songs together?
Yes, I wrote 3 of the songs myself. Reb and I wrote the rest of them, and then Desmond Child wrote helped me with the words on Desperado, and uh, another friend of mine helped me with the words on Stick the Knife In and Twist.
Okay.
And one song's co-written by John Roth and
Oh, okay. Okay. So I know your last couple of albums, you worked with Donnie Purnell, co-wrote a couple of songs with you guys. Anybody who knows you know you have a long history with Kix. I guess he wasn't part of the process this go around.
I begged him to do it.
I guess you still talk with him.
And I begged him to do it, but he couldn't. He was too busy making his solo record, and he wouldn't do it. I had a couple tracks. I still have a song that I want him to write too, but finally I gave up begging and decided. It's like, okay, Kip, you're gonna have to write these words yourself, basically.
Oh man.
He's a great lyricist. I mean, he might be. I mean, he's I wouldn't even know where to rank Donnie. He's so good. It's freakish.
No, I was a big Kix fan all through the 80s, still am to this day. And I always appreciated him as a songwriter. And I always look at the albums and the credits. So I always picked up his name. And obviously, I said you have a long history. I've always wondered the song Bang Bang Ball of Fire from Kix. Was that yours originally? Was that theirs? And you came in and helped? What was the genesis of that song?
I wrote the music to that song. That was a song that I had under another title. They heard the music and they wanted to take the music and write a song around that. So that's my riff. Bow da do do da do 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 down. And then I think was it Bob Halligan
Yep.
and Donnie Purnell wrote the words to that.
Okay. Any chance he'll be on his? I'm sorry, what was that?
And the melody.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about songwriting here for a moment, right? You just mentioned vocal melody, right? When you're writing a song, what's the most important thing to you? Is it a vocal melody? Is it a chorus hook? You mentioned Desmond Child before, and he's told me he just comes in with a song title, and that's the most important thing. For you as a songwriter, what's the most important aspect?
Desmond was telling me that. He was like, you know what? It's not great to write these words to an existing track. You should be coming up with the title and writing the songs to the title. I never have done that. When I wrote the musical Get Jack, I wrote to the words. That was the first time I'd ever done it, and it was really exhilarating. I like doing that a lot. It's more, like writing to an opera, but man, I write all the music first, and then I find the lyrics and melody. I write music, melody, lyrics.
Okay.
That's just the way it goes, especially on the Winger stuff, because the music largely comes from Reb and I, and it's always riff based, So we try to riff and then see what the deal is.
Sure. How would you say you've evolved or changed as a songwriter over the years, or do you still feel like you're the same songwriter?
No, I used to struggle much more than I do now. I mean, now I'm much better at hearing an idea and knowing what to do with it. Back in the day, it was like I'd have to experiment way more than I do now. Now I kind of can hear something and I kind of know a lot more about how to achieve what I'm hearing. And my vocabulary is much wider because I studied classical music for so long now.
Sure.
But the process with me and Reb is the same. It's just drum machine, write a riff, and go from there.
You're off to the races.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really the same from the very first song we ever wrote. The process is the same.
That's awesome.
We're obviously much more used to each other after this long 35 years of doing it, but we make a good team because my deficiencies are his attributes and vice versa, so we interface very well on songwriting.
And that's one of the things to me, listening to the album, it's amazing. It's still all the original members, right? Still the same lineup, 35 years. And to me, it comes through, it feels like a band album. It's not hip with a bunch of studio musicians. It really truly feels like a band album to me.
Have you heard the whole album?
Yes, I have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is the first Winger album that every single original member played on every single track. And Paul Taylor played his first solo on Broken Glass. John Roth has a couple solos. John Roth has a co-write, and so yeah, I'm most proud of the fact that each guy's on every track.
Sure.
So the recipe of it is really, it's in that way it's the most pure Winger record there is.
Hmm. Love it. Now, you asked if I've heard the album. To me, one song that jumped out at me, It's Okay. That song was just, it was different. So talk about that song, because I think when fans listen to the album, they're going to say, ooh, that was a curveball I didn't expect, but it's so cool. It's catchy. Talk about that song.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. That was one of my favorite songs too. And by the way, Reb Beach is doing his lead vocal debut on that.
Mhm.
He sings the second verse. Well, he actually sang a lead line in Rainbow in the Rose, but he's actually taken the verse on this. And um, we just wanted a funky track like Down Incognito. We were trying to, we just try to throw in something like that on every record. And uh, the "It's okay now" is a bit Maroon 5-ish with the not really, but I mean it's a falsetto, and then you kind of go into the big chorus. It's a song about the fact that life is an illusion, and you might think you see something, but you ain't seeing the truth. The truth is beyond the veil.
Hmm. Well, to me, it was a really catchy song. I loved it. And I love the difference between that and like the first single, right? Proud Desperado, which is a hard rocking, heavy song.
Yeah.
So to me, that's one of the things I like about the album. Is it does have that mix. So just talk about the initial single, Proud Desperado, for a moment. What does the lyrics mean? What does that song mean?
Well, that was one of the first songs we wrote, and we had that. I mean, we had that pretty early on, and we I had all the melodies, and I was, when I sang that, the pre-chorus, the "Proud Desperado," we were thinking, wow, that's a great chorus.
Mm,
And then finally, I was like laying in bed, thinking that ain't the chorus, man. We got to take it one step higher. And so it took us quite a while to figure out how to modulate that. To be honest with you, I was like, how do we move the energy up?
mm,
And finally, you know, we figured out how to do that, which is it's a very interesting modulation for all you musicians out there. I managed to move to modulate that move the energy up, but when it resolves back into the riff, it's a whole step down.
mm,
So you have to transpose you'll hear the verse riff transpose up back up to get back into place uh, on the second verse. And I had some lyrics like desperado and some words and stuff, and I was just stuck on the words. I couldn't figure it out, and I ran into Desmond Child on a songwriting master class that he was doing for Rock and Roll
mhm,
Fantasy Camp, of which I just wanted to kind of listen along,
mm,
because I've known Desmond for a long time, but I've never heard him talk about songwriting. So I was listening to it, and then we exchanged numbers then, and I just got the vibe to text him and asked him if he'd help me with the words on that.
mm. And he's a great songwriter himself. So
Oh, he's incredible, and that was
yes.
a great experience. The song's really about holding out and losing faith, and being led down the wrong path and left holding the bag.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about music today is that there could be a lot of online interaction. And you're online, you do some videos, you do Facebook Lives, right? The flip side is there's no more MTV outlet that's plugging your videos 24/7. Rock radio will play the classics, but try to get them to play the newest stuff is a little hard. Do you think it's easier or harder these days to connect with your fans and connect with new music?
I think it's way easier through social media. I mean, for those people who really work the social media, I mean, look what's happened. I mean, it's like you just go straight to the fans. You don't have to have the middleman. So at that point, it's better. But for dinosaurs like me, it's you know it's different because social media is extremely time consuming, and I like to spend my time writing. So,
Hmm,
and I don't want to film myself doing every single thing every day.
sure.
And so I find it just extremely distracting,
Mm.
and the one biggest killer for creativity is interruption. You know,
Hmm.
and so I'll be always trying to, hey, look at me, I'm doing this. I mean, I find it really difficult to keep that up. But having said that, if you don't do it, it's do or die. So I understand, and I'm the same. If I'm a fan of Peter Gabriel. I like to see what he's doing in the day. Like, what does he do? Where does he
Hmm.
go for coffee? It's interesting.
Right, right. Well, it's
So
interesting to me even just hearing how you met Desmond in an online thing like that.
right, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword. But to answer your question, I think it's much easier now.
Mhm.
But it's much more difficult because there's so many more people out there. There's the competition has become exponentially way more intense.
Very true. And people's attention spans, I always say this, here today, gone later today.
Yeah, I think that's true. That that is a litmus test for how much you can move someone's emotion.
Hmm.
Because if you do something that grabs somebody's emotion, they will stop and listen to it.
True. Very true. Now, I think, I know today, like I said, you released the second video from the album. I know I saw online you recorded 3. I've read maybe you recorded 6. Is there plans to do more videos for the album?
Yeah, we've filmed 6 of them.
Okay. Okay.
It's okay is one of them too.
Oh, nice. All right. I'm excited
It's
about that.
very different. You'll be surprised what we do with that.
All right. Do you know when those will be released? Will
I
there
have
be any more
no
before the
idea.
album?
No idea. One of them will be released with the release of the album on May 5th, but
Okay.
at this point I don't know which one, and there's actually 2 or 3 more that I'd like to film
Yep. Okay.
because I feel like without a visual component that you know people want to see something as well as hear it now, so
It's amazing. I did a poll on my website of how do people consume new music, and the number one answer was YouTube.
yeah,
Yeah. So they, to your point, they want to see it.
yeah,
It's amazing.
right.
So I know you're going on the road to support the new album, right? Do you plan on playing some of the new songs? How many do you plan on putting into the set list?
That's a good question. I need to call a band meeting and talk about that. We'll definitely do Proud Desperado. Maybe it all comes back around, but we have limited set times and we have to get in all like the singles that we've done prior to this. So
Sure.
I want to do the new music. You know, and I like songs like Pull Me Under from Karma, and
Hmm.
um, I love my favorite song to perform is Midnight Driver of a Love Machine
Is it?
off A Better Days Coming. That's so much fun to play.
That is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, you said you had, and it's a good blessing to have, right? You have a lot of your catalog that when fans come to see you, they want to hear 17, Headed for a Heartbreak, Easy Come, Easy Go, Miles Away. But do you ever wake up and say, damn, I wish tonight I could just take every one of those songs out of the set list and just play the new album?
I've thought about it from a point of view of like, yeah, I'd like to do a concert of run throughs of albums, like
Hmm.
from beginning to end. But um, I like playing the hits because people dig them. It's like uh, people like to hear that stuff. They feel like they connect to a place in their lives. So you always hit a nerve when when you do one of the hits. They're fun to play, man.
Yeah, no, and look, to that point, I remember the first time I saw Winger was 1990 on tour with Kiss, yourselves, and Slaughter. And to me, that was a great triple bill. Do you remember anything about that tour?
Oh, of course. I mean, that was a great tour, man. Gene Simmons came into our dressing room every night to tell us the joke we had told him the day before.
That's great. Oh, that is
Great guy.
great.
Paul and Gene love those guys. They're you know, I mean, it was Kiss. I mean, come on. First, I was in Alice Cooper's band, and then I got to tour with Kiss. I mean, that was amazing. Paul Stanley was my go-to rock star for years. I mean, Paul Stanley and David Lee Roth. I never met David Lee Roth.
Mm.
Um,
So
but
good.
but yeah, that tour was fantastic. I mean, it was interesting. I remember I was at the Rainbow in LA, which
Yep.
we're not an LA band. We cut our teeth in New York. We came out of New York we cut our second and third albums in LA, but I never lived there. But I was at the Rainbow in between after our first album was done and we were getting ready to do our second record. And Paul Stanley came up to me and goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing in September? We want to take you guys out on the road." And that was like, are you kidding me? I watched you when I was 15 in San Francisco when I stayed with my mom, and you guys rocked my world so hard I didn't wake up until 4 in the afternoon the next day.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you said Paul Stanley and David Lee Roth. Did you look up to them as singers or as frontmen and performers or both?
Front man, yeah, front
Uh,
man.
who were the singers that really inspired
Well, I
you?
mean, Paul Stanley is a singer for sure. David
Yeah.
Lee Roth is a great singer. I mean, very underrated.
Yep.
But I can't do that style. I'm very like acclimated to Paul Stanley's vibe. Our
Mm.
voices are similar, and I listened to a lot of stuff that he did. That's an excellent question. I mean, God, you know what? No one's ever asked me that question, so I
Mm.
need to figure that answer out. But definitely Paul Stanley. I liked singers like Ian Gillan,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, like from the real Deep Purple, you
Hmm.
know, and and David Coverdale was in Deep Purple, but I consider David Coverdale more, White
White
Snake.
Snake. Yeah.
I worked a year on one of his riffs trying to master that.
Mm.
But I'm not a David Coverdale type singer.
Right.
I could never do that bluesy stuff. I had to work at that for a long time. But
Okay.
um, man, I'm gonna think about that and come back at you.
All right. I look forward to that. We were talking about before that you played bass for Alice Cooper, obviously before Winger. You mentioned the classical music that you do. I'm going to mention that you've been nominated for a Grammy in the past, right? I know
Yeah.
Rev is, very highly thought of. Do you feel like you are finally maybe getting the recognition to me you deserve as a musician, or do you still feel like you don't get the credit that you deserve?
Oh, both. I mean, it's an interesting question. I think people like yourself and musicians especially, they know the difference. And if
Mhm.
and like the Steve Vais of the world, they know what's up. I think the haters are the like the Beavis and Butthead fallout people that
Right.
never really they're not musicians. They didn't really know what we're all about, and they wanted to pick on 17, but they forgot that Paul McCartney still sings "Well, She Was Just 17" every night
Very,
he's
very
75
true.
because we're all following McCartney. I mean, that's it. They were the leaders. It still are.
So
So
true.
whatever. Yeah.
So
But
true.
I think history will be a fair judge of our band and my music, our music and my music. As a solo artist and a classical composer, I
Agreed.
think I think history will judge me fairly, but it won't be maybe in my lifetime.
Well, hopefully it is. I'm hoping it is. Then that's why. So I was surprised when I was reading a recent interview. You were talking about the new album, complimenting all the guys on the bands that are playing on the album. But then you said the quote was something along the lines of, I'm not really a player anymore. And I was like, what? What's Kip talking about? So what did you mean by that when you said about yourself, you're not really a player anymore?
I never practiced my instrument. I mean, I practice singing, but I never practice bass. I never pick it up. I pick it up 5 minutes before I go on stage.
Hmm.
And I don't have a desire to like go. There's so many people out there that could do that 10 billion times better than me, because I'm not interested in that. I'll never be Billy Sheehan.
That's exactly what I thought of when you started doing that.
Well, I mean, Billy's bass genius. I mean,
Yes.
and I just don't. I I'm that in composing and writing songs and stuff. That's where I've chosen to put my focus. So when it comes to like a bunch of guys sitting around jamming, not my thing.
Hmm.
Like everything's very composed, everything's very put together. Um, I'll jam the blues, or if you put together a Grand Funk tribute band, I'm there. You know,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like I love those bass parts all day long, man. But you know, guys like Reb, I mean, they live for I mean,
Sure.
they live for Rod. It's not my thing, man. You know,
Uh,
I'm honored to be on stage with those guys, and every once in a while we'll go into a sound check jam, but I'll be like, okay, you know, like not that into it.
So what do you think then your legacy is going to be as a musician? You said you don't think you'll get the respect until you're no longer here. Well, what do you think your legacy will be?
The songs that I've written and the orchestral music that I've done.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
that's all there is. I mean, it's just all my catalog of stuff, you know.
Great answer. What do you think the biggest misconception is then about your band and yourself?
That we're posers.
Do you hate the term hair metal?
I don't mind it. I mean, everybody has to. That's just the public needing to superimpose a epicenter of a certain
Mhm.
thing. You know, it's
Yeah.
like grunge. Do ask, you know, Jerry Cantrell, does he like the term grunge? I mean, it's kind of a cool term, so they lucked out. Hardly any grunge bands anymore, and then you know, like the singers are all gone,
Sadly.
and hair metal. I mean, '80s rock. I've heard it all. You know, hair
Mhm.
metal, '80s rock. I mean, I don't know what the difference is. Yeah, I don't mind. It's fine. Whatever people need to label you.
You mentioned Beavis and Butthead before, and they rebooted the series last year. Did you think, oh no, not again, please, let's not stop our momentum that we've had for the last few years?
No, a lot of people are like, "How'd you get your name on the T-shirt?" You know, I spoke to Mike Judge before they were getting ready to do that, so you know,
Okay,
we're all straight with that. I mean,
that's great.
it didn't help in the day, but it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. The new album, like we said, is coming out next month. Back in the 80s, Success was selling 1 million copies, hit songs, MTV, and the radio, everything that you guys had. What success look like for you in 2023?
That's an excellent question. For me, and I've thought about this a lot. For me, it's just successful songwriting and successful, you know, music that if I like it, it's successful. Um, you know, I read the comments, like I've read some of the comments already on It All Comes Back Around, and
Sure.
from reading the comments, okay, I'm like successful. You
Mhm.
can't force 1 million people to buy your stuff. Nobody buys music anymore, you
No,
know. So
sadly.
um, our shows have been attendance at our shows have been way up. So I mean, I'm lucky to be doing this 35 years in, man.
No, right. Now, like you said, people aren't buying music, but I just want to highlight here as we get ready to wrap up. It's available on vinyl. It's
Yes.
available on CD.
Yeah.
You can get it on the website, right? So, am I correct in saying where can they go on the website to order this?
Just wingertheband.com and there's links to all of it, you know. We
Excellent.
appreciate anybody pre-ordering. Nobody buys music anymore, but it's great for us. Uh, you know, it's just cool. Like when we see, yeah, they actually bought it, you know, because and we will sign it if you come to our shows, you know.
And that was the next thing I was going to mention. You have the VIP opportunities at the shows, right?
Yeah, we do, yeah. And I was saying earlier that not in a different conversation, that it's fun to meet the people that do the VIP because they're the true fans. I mean, they're the ones that know all our stuff. Somebody was asking me if I enjoy doing it, and it's fun to meet the people that are like the real hardcore fans, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Kip, I'm sure the album is going to do well, much success with it. Fans are going to love it. I've heard it, like I said. Anything else you want the fans to know about before we wrap up?
Just thanks for being with us for 35 years, man. We appreciate it very much, and thanks for supporting live music.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see you on the road this summer. Tom Kiefer, if you're in the States, Steel Panther, if you're overseas. And we look forward to seeing you on the road, Kip.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Take it easy. Bye bye.
Bye.
Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank Kip for taking some time talking all about the new forthcoming Winger album, 7. Trust me, I know you guys are going to really enjoy this album. You're definitely going to want to check it out. Thanks so much, Kip, for taking time to chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.